For me personally, it's also important to work with the Latino community because I feel as a Cuban American, the way we were received as Cubans leaving Cuba is completely different than the way Latinos have been received ever since then. And if you look back at when Cubans were leaving Cuba, immigration laws were such that preference was given to white Europeans, and that the whole emphasis was in bringing in as many white Europeans as possible, which is sort of the base of the immigration of this country up until the 1960s. What happened at the time was that President Johnson was trying to find a way to completely revamp immigration laws. So the 1965 Immigration Reform Act was a sea change in U.S. immigration policy. And it gave preference to Latinos, to Asians, to people coming from Africa, to basically the third world. Now you got to take yourself back to what was happening in 1965. You have major civil rights struggles going on in this country. You have African Americans demanding their rights as workers, as homeowners, as people living in this country. You have the economic class, if you will, quite worried about the potential lack of affordable labor. You have this need for a new pool of affordable labor. So you have the backing of the industrial sector to bring in more immigrants from third world countries. And then you had President Johnson using the political leverage of saying, well, look at the Cubans. You know, we let them in, and look how great they're doing, sort of the success of the success story. What people don't know is in the 1960s, the Cuban American community received about $1 billion in economic assistance, and that was through microloans, it was through English classes, it was through anything from food stamps to assistance with clothing, food pantry. I mean, I studied this in depth, and I realized that, you know, we were the favored immigrants. And so I'm here today thanks to that attitude, thanks to that mindset. And what I argue is what would have been brilliant is if they had maintained that mindset for future political refugees and for future immigrant waves. And I'm thinking of the Salvadorans in the 1980s. You know, we had hundreds of thousands of Salvadorans fleeing civil war. They were coming here for political reasons. They were coming here to escape violence, just like the Cubans were coming to escape the Castro regime. We're now welcomed with open arms. And they've been consistently rejected, I would say, by mainstream society. And it sickens me. It sickens me that this country could have such a paradoxical approach to immigration. You know, granted, there's a lot at play here. There's a race issue. There's a class issue. There are a whole number of issues why, you know, indigenous people from El Salvador, poor, being treated differently than white, somewhat, you know, access to wealth, although the Cubans lost everything coming here, but had the education and the capacity to be wealth generators. So my whole thing is we need to go back, we need to look at the policy we had back then, and we need to recreate that policy to make long-term economic success stories out of all the Salvadorans and others. Salvadorans are about 40% of the immigrant pool here in the greater Washington area. And we need these guys to be successful. It's in the interests of all of us, whether you're Latino or not, for immigrants to be economically successful. So why not do it?